Daf Yomi Tractate, Bava Batra, page 8b, top of the page, with the words Pidyon Shvui Mitzvah Rabbahi. That redeeming captives is a great mitzvah. We're saying that Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yehuda taught that one does not impose a charity obligation on orphans, even for the sake of redeeming captives. Learn from this that redeeming captives is a great mitzvah. Rava said to Rabba Bar Mari concerning this matter that the sages stated that redeeming captives is a great mitzvah. From where is it derived? Rabba Bar Mari said to him, as it is written, and it shall come to pass when they say to you, to where shall we depart? Then you shall tell them, so says the Lord, such as are for death, to death, and such as are for the sword, to the sword, and such are as for famine, to famine, and such as are for captivity, to captivity. Jeremiah 15:2. Rabbi Yochanan says, whichever punishment is written later in this verse is more severe than the one before it. Rabbi Yochanan explains, the sword is worse than death. Excuse me. Rabbi Yochanan explains the sword is worse than death. If you wish, say that this is learned from a verse. If you wish, say instead that it is derived from a way of logical reasoning. If you wish, say that it is derived by way of logical reasoning. This punishment, in other words, death by the sword, mutilates the body, but that punishment, in other words, natural death, does not mutilate it. And if you wish, say that the fact that the sword is worse than death is learned from a verse, precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his pious ones. Psalms 116:15. Famine is worse than the sword. If you wish, say that this is derived by way of logical reasoning. This one who dies of famine suffers greatly before departing from this world, but that one who dies by the sword does not suffer. If you wish, say instead that the fact that the famine is worse than the sword is learned from a verse, more fortunate were the victims of the sword than the victims of famine. Lamentations 4 verse 9. And captivity is worse than all of them, as it includes all of them. Famine includes famine, the sword, and death. Tanu Rabbanan. In connection with the previous discussion concerning charity and distribution, the Gemara cites a brisa in which the sages taught, Tanu Rabbanan, money for the charity fund is collected by two people and distributed by three people. It is collected by two people because one does not appoint an authority over a community composed of fewer than two people. And it is distributed by three people, like the number of judges needed in the cases of monetary law, since the distributors determine who receives money and who does not, as well as how much each person receives. Tamchui, food for the charity platter, is collected by three people and distributed by three people because its collection and its distribution take place on the same day. Food for the charity platter is collected and distributed every day, and therefore a third individual must participate in the collection so that he will be available to take part in the distribution without delay. Whereas the money of the charity fund is distributed only once a week on each Shabbat Eve. Tamchoi. There are additional differences between those two types of charity operations. The food from the charity platter is distributed to the poor of the world, meaning to any poor individual arriving in the city. The money of the charity fund is allocated exclusively to the poor of the city, but it is permitted for the residents of the city to use more money than that has been collected for the charity fund to purchase food for the charity platter to feed the poor, and similarly they may use food that had been collected for the charity platter for the charity fund. In general, it is permitted for them to change the purpose toward which charity will be used whatever they want in accordance with the deeds of the community. Okay, the community. I think we will stop here with the words community. Where are we? The needs of the community. Okay. Yeah, we'll stop there and we'll continue with the final part.